Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair aboard the exploration vessel, USS Aurora, as it drifted through the quiet darkness of space. The ship had been traveling for 3 months now, mapping new star systems on the outer edge of known space. Jake rubbed his tired eyes and looked at the stars outside the main window. Space exploration was mostly boring work with long periods of nothing happening, but Jake loved it anyway. Lieutenant Amy Brooks worked at her communications station, listening to the usual background noise of space. Radio waves from distant stars, cosmic radiation, and the hum of their own ship engines filled her headphones. She had been doing this job for 5 years and knew every normal sound that space could make. That was why the new signal caught her attention so quickly. "Captain Morrison, I am picking up something strange," Amy said as she adjusted her equipment. "This does not sound like anything I have heard before." Jake turned toward her station. "What kind of signal is it?" Amy frowned as she listened more carefully. "It sounds like a transmission, but the pattern is completely different from human communications. The frequency keeps changing, and there are these odd harmonics mixed in." Dr. Paul Carter, the ship's language expert, walked over from his research station. He was a thin man with gray hair who spent most of his time studying dead languages from Earth's history. "May I listen to it?" he asked. Amy handed him a spare headset. Paul listened for several minutes, his face growing more serious with each passing moment. "This is not random noise," he said finally. "There is definitely a pattern here. It has the structure of language, but unlike any human language I have ever studied." Jake felt his heart start beating faster. "Are you saying this might be from aliens?" "That is exactly what I am saying," Paul replied. "And if I am reading the pattern correctly, this message is being repeated over and over again. Whatever is sending this really wants someone to hear it." Commander Lisa Hayes, Jake's second-in-command, joined them at the communications station. She was a practical woman who did not like taking unnecessary risks. "Captain, we should report this to Earth Command immediately and let them decide what to do." Jake thought about it for a moment. Earth Command would indeed want to know about this, but they were weeks away from Earth. By the time instructions came back, the signal might be gone. "Amy, can you determine where this signal is coming from?" Amy worked at her controls for several minutes. "Yes, sir. The source is approximately 2 light-years from our current position. It appears to be coming from the star system that our long-range sensors show has at least 7 planets. Paul, how long would it take you to figure out what this message is saying?" Jake asked. Paul scratched his chin thoughtfully. "If this really is an alien language, it could take days or even weeks. But the repetitive nature of the message might help. Languages often follow similar patterns, even alien ones." Lisa stepped closer to Jake. "Captain, I strongly advise against investigating this personally. We are an exploration ship, not a first contact vessel. We do not have the proper equipment or training for this kind of situation." Jake understood Lisa's concerns, but something about the signal bothered him. The way it kept repeating suggested urgency, maybe even desperation. "Amy, does the signal seem to be getting weaker or stronger?" "It has been getting slightly weaker over the past hour," Amy reported. "At this rate, we might lose it completely within a day or two." Jake made his decision. "Set course for the source of that signal, maximum safe speed." Lisa shook her head. "Captain, I must formally object to this course of action." "Your objection is noted and logged," Jake replied. "But we are explorers. This might be the most important discovery in human history, and we could be the first humans to make contact with an alien species. I will not let that opportunity slip away because we were too cautious." Over the next 18 hours, Paul worked tirelessly on the alien message. He filled dozens of pages with notes, trying different approaches to decode the repeating pattern. Amy helped by isolating different parts of the signal and cleaning up the static. "I think I'm making progress," Paul announced during the second day. "The message structure suggests it might be some kind of distress call. There are sections that repeat in a way that reminds me of emergency broadcasts." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. "A distress call? Are you sure?" "Not completely sure, but the pattern fits. There are parts that seem to be coordinates, others that might be identifying information, and sections that have an urgent, repetitive quality that suggests a plea for help. Amy looked up from her station. Captain, I am also picking up other signals from that star system now. Much weaker than the main distress call, but definitely artificial. There is definitely technological activity in that system. Dr. Susan Miller, the ship's medical officer, joined them on the bridge. She was a kind woman who worried about everyone's health, including Jake's habit of not sleeping when he was excited about something. Captain, you have been awake for 26 hours straight. You need rest. I cannot rest now, Susan. We might be about to make first contact with an alien species. Susan frowned. And you will be no good to anyone if you collapse from exhaustion during the most important moment in human history. Jake knew she was right, but he also knew he would not be able to sleep in just a few more hours. I promise I will rest once. We know more about what we are dealing with. Paul suddenly looked up from his work with excitement in his eyes. Captain, I think I have translated part of the message. It mentions something called the Zolani Republic, and there are references to what might be an enemy force called the Korthic Empire. What else? Jake asked. This is the interesting part. There are several references to something they call Deathworlders. The context suggests they are asking for help from Deathworlders, and from what I can tell, they seem to think Deathworlders are incredibly dangerous, but also capable warriors. Lisa raised an eyebrow. Deathworlders? What do you think that means? Paul shrugged. I'm not sure, but based on the context, I think they might be referring to us. To humans, the bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Jake felt a strange mixture of excitement and fear. They were heading toward an alien species that knew about humans and considered them dangerous enough to call Deathworlders, but also trusted them enough to ask for help. How much longer until we reach that star system? Jake asked. Amy checked her navigation display. At current speed, approximately 14 hours, Captain. Jake looked around at his crew. These were good people, trained explorers and scientists, but none of them had ever imagined they would be making first contact with aliens. I want everyone to get some rest while we can. When we arrive at that system, everything changes. The U's Aurora dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the alien star system, and Jake Morrison could hardly believe what appeared on the main screen. The system's fourth planet was a beautiful blue-green world covered mostly in oceans, with small landmasses scattered across its surface like emeralds on silk. But the beauty was marred by the obvious signs of war. Dozens of strange ships moved in chaotic patterns around the planet. Some were elegant, curved vessels that seemed to flow like water through space. Others were dark, angular craft that looked more like flying fortresses covered in spikes and armor. Explosions of light flashed between the two groups as they fired weapons at each other. My God, Amy Brooks whispered from her communications station. Captain, I am receiving hundreds of different transmissions. The aliens are definitely fighting a battle down there. Dr. Paul Carter studied the alien ships through the ship's telescopes. The curved ships match the source of our distress signal. I believe those belong to the Zolani Republic. The angular ships must be the Korthic Empire. Jake watched as one of the elegant Zolani ships exploded in a burst of bright light. Amy, can you establish communication with the Zolani? Amy worked at her controls for several minutes. I think so, Captain. I am transmitting on the same frequency as their distress signal, using the language patterns Dr. Carter identified. A few moments later, Amy's face lit up with excitement. Captain, we are getting a response. The signal is much clearer now. Dr. Carter, I think they are trying to talk to us. Paul put on his headset and listened carefully. His knowledge of the alien language had improved during their journey, and now he could understand much more of what the aliens were saying. They are asking who we are and where we come from. They seem very surprised to receive our transmission. Tell them we are humans from Earth, and we received their distress call. Jake ordered. Paul translated Jake's message into the alien language as best he could. The response came back almost immediately, and Paul's face went pale as he listened. What are they saying? Jake demanded. They are calling us the Deathworlders, Paul said slowly. But Captain, they sound terrified of us. Not just surprised, but actually afraid. Commander Lisa Hayes frowned. That does not make sense. We are one small exploration ship. Why would they be afraid of us? Before Paul could answer, Amy interrupted. Captain, one of the Zilani ships is approaching us. It is much larger than our vessel, but it is moving very slowly. I think they want to talk. Jake studied the approaching alien ship on the main screen. It was nearly 3 times the size of the Aurora, with smooth curves and what looked like living coral growing along its hull. Soft blue lights pulsed along its surface in a rhythm that reminded Jake of a heartbeat. Open a channel, Jake ordered. The main screen flickered, and suddenly they were looking at their first alien. The creature was humanoid, but clearly not human. Its skin was a pale blue-green color that shimmered like fish scales. Instead of hair, it had flowing tentacles that moved gently around its head. Its eyes were large and dark with no visible pupils, and it had gill slits along the sides of its neck. When the alien spoke, its voice was like water flowing over rocks, musical and strange. Paul translated as quickly as he could. He says his name is Kale Merdis, and he is a defense coordinator for the Zilani Republic. He is asking if we are really Deathworlders from the Forbidden World. Jake stepped forward so the alien could see him clearly. Tell him we are humans from Earth. We received their distress call and came to help. Paul translated, and Kale's large eyes grew even wider. He spoke rapidly, his tentacle hair writhing with what seemed like excitement or fear. He says he cannot believe that Deathworlders have actually come, Paul translated. He is asking how many ships we brought and how many warriors we have. Jake felt confused. Tell him we have only one ship with a crew of 50 people. We are explorers, not warriors. When Paul translated this, Kale seemed shocked. He spoke again, gesturing with hands that had long, webbed fingers. He says that even one ship of Deathworlders might be enough, Paul reported. Captain, I think they have some very strange ideas about what humans are capable of. Dr. Susan Miller had joined them on the bridge and was staring at the alien with fascination. This is incredible. He appears to be an aquatic species that has somehow developed space travel. Kale spoke again, and this time his voice carried a note of desperate hope. Paul listened carefully before translating. He is asking if we will help them fight the Korthic Empire. He says his people have been fighting for months, but they are losing. Their world will be destroyed unless someone helps them. Jake felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Ask him why they think humans can help when their own people cannot win. Paul translated the question, and Kale's response was long and complex. Paul had to ask for clarification several times before he could translate it properly. This is extraordinary, Captain, Paul said finally. He says that humans come from what they call a death world, a planet so dangerous that only the most aggressive and adaptable species could survive there. He says that most galactic species evolved on peaceful worlds with few predators and little violence, but Earth apparently had both, which made humans into natural warriors. Lisa shook her head in disbelief. They think we are some kind of super soldiers. Just because we come from Earth? It gets stranger, Paul continued. Kale says that the Galactic Council, apparently some kind of government that rules most of the galaxy, declared Earth off-limits hundreds of years ago. Most species are not even supposed to know that humans exist because they were considered too dangerous. Jake tried to process this information. So there is an entire galactic civilization out there, and they have been deliberately avoiding contact with us? That is what he is saying, Paul confirmed. But now the Zilani are desperate enough to call for help from the legendary Deathworlders. Suddenly, Amy's control panel lit up with warning signals. Captain, sensors are detecting multiple Korthic ships heading toward us. They are moving fast. On the main screen, they could see 5 of the dark, angular ships approaching. Up close, the Korthic vessels looked even more menacing. They were covered in what looked like insect-like armor plating, with weapon ports that glowed red like angry eyes. Kale spoke urgently to them, his tentacles writhing with obvious fear. Paul translated quickly. He says the Korthak have noticed the U.S. and are coming to investigate. He wants to know if we are prepared to fight. Jake felt his heart pounding. The Aurora was an exploration ship with only basic defensive weapons. They were not equipped for combat against alien warships. But looking at Cale's desperate face on the screen, Jake realized they might not have a choice. Sergeant Ben Collins. To the bridge. Jake called over the ship's communication system. Ben Collins was the leader of the Aurora's small Marine detachment, 12 soldiers whose job was supposed to be protecting the crew during planetary explorations. He was a tough man with scars on his hands and a calm way of speaking that made everyone feel safer. When Ben arrived on the bridge, Jake quickly explained the situation. Ben looked at the approaching Korthak ships and nodded grimly. Captain, our weapons are not designed for ship-to-ship combat, but we do have some surprises that might work. What kind of surprises? Jake asked. Ben smiled, and for the first time since arriving in the system, Jake felt a spark of hope. Well, sir, it turns out that being from a death world has some advantages. The first battle between humans and aliens lasted only 17 minutes, but it changed everything. Sergeant Ben Collins and his Marines had used their portable missile launchers and explosive charges to cripple 2 Korthak ships, while the Aurora's modified mining lasers cut through alien armor like it was made of paper. The remaining Korthak vessels retreated in what looked like panic. Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the Aurora, still trying to believe what had just happened. Through the main screen, he could see the wreckage of alien warships floating in space. His small exploration vessel had just defeated 5 enemy ships that the Zilani had been unable to stop. Captain, Amy Brooks called from her communications station. I am receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. They want to speak with you immediately. Jake had sent a full report to Earth as soon as the battle ended. He knew that news of first contact with aliens would cause chaos back home, but he had not expected a response this quickly. Put them through. The face of Admiral Kate Stone appeared on the screen. She was a stern woman with gray hair and hard eyes who had been in charge of Earth's defense for over 10 years. Behind her, Jake could see the busy control room of Fleet Command. Headquarters. Captain Morrison, Admiral Stone said without any greeting, your report has been forwarded to the highest levels of government. The President wants a full briefing within the hour. But first, I need you to confirm something. Did you really defeat 5 alien warships with an exploration vessel and 12 Marines? Yes, ma'am, Jake replied. The enemy ships seemed completely unprepared for our weapons. Their armor was designed to stop energy weapons, but our missiles and explosives went right through it. Admiral Stone leaned forward. Captain, do you understand what this means? If your report is accurate, then human military technology is far superior to anything these aliens have ever seen. Dr. Paul Carter stepped into view of the camera. Admiral Stone, I believe the situation is more complex than that. Based on my conversations with the Zilani, most galactic species evolved on peaceful worlds. They never developed the kind of weapons that humans consider normal because they never had to fight wars like we did on Earth. Explain, Admiral Stone ordered. Paul consulted his notes. The Zilani have been fighting the Korthak Empire for months using what they call energy pulse weapons and bioships that can regenerate damage. But they have never seen projectile weapons or chemical explosives. To them, the idea of throwing pieces of metal at high speed or using controlled explosions as weapons is completely foreign. Admiral Stone was quiet for a long moment. So what you are telling me is that human military doctrine is so different from alien warfare that we have a massive tactical advantage? That appears to be the case, Paul confirmed. But there is more. The Zilani have told me that there are dozens of other species in this galaxy, and most of them are currently under attack by the Korthak Empire. If we could help them, we might be able to forge alliances that would benefit Earth greatly. Jake watched Admiral Stone's expression change as she realized the implications. Earth had always been alone in the universe, but now they had discovered an entire galaxy full of potential allies and enemies. Captain Morrison, Admiral Stone said finally, I am ordering you to establish a temporary base of operations in that System and continue gathering intelligence. General Rick Davis is already mobilizing the first fleet. We will have ships heading your way within 72 hours. After the transmission ended, Jake felt overwhelmed by the responsibility that had suddenly fallen on his shoulders. He was no longer just an exploration captain. He was now Earth's first ambassador to an alien galaxy, and possibly the key to humanity's survival in a much larger and more dangerous universe. Over the next 2 days, Jake learned more about Galactic civilization from his conversations with Kale Merdis and other Zilani leaders. The picture that emerged was both fascinating and terrifying. The galaxy was home to hundreds of intelligent species, most of which had joined together in something called the Galactic Council. This organization had maintained peace for thousands of years by establishing rules about warfare and territory. Most conflicts were resolved through negotiation rather than violence, but the Korthic Empire had changed everything. This aggressive, insectoid species had appeared from the outer rim of the galaxy about 50 years ago and had been conquering worlds ever since. Their technology was not particularly advanced, but they were willing to use brutal tactics that other species found shocking. Dr. Susan Miller had been studying the medical data that Zilani shared with them, and her findings were disturbing. "Captain," she reported, "the Korthic are not just conquering these worlds, they are consuming them. They strip planets of all resources, including the intelligent species that live there. The Zilani estimate that the Korthic have already destroyed over 200 civilizations." Jake felt sick thinking about entire species being wiped out. "How many species are currently under attack?" "At least 30 that we know of," Susan replied. "And the Korthic are getting stronger with each world they consume. If someone does not stop them soon, they will eventually have enough resources to threaten the entire galaxy." When the first fleet arrived under the command of Admiral Chris Parker, Jake was amazed by the reaction of the Zilani. The sight of 12 human warships caused excitement and fear in equal measure among the aliens. Kale Merdis told Jake that legends of Deathworlder fleets had been passed down for generations, but no one had ever expected to see one. Admiral Parker was a practical man who wasted no time on ceremony. Within hours of his arrival, he had established a command center on the largest Zilani station and was planning military operations against the Korthic. "Captain Morrison," Admiral Parker said during their first strategy meeting, "your initial engagement proved that human weapons are highly effective against Korthic ships. But we need to understand their overall capabilities before we commit to a full-scale war." Captain Tony Mitchell, commander of the strike cruiser Use Vengeance, had been studying the wreckage of the Korthic ships that Jake had destroyed. "Admiral," he reported, "their technology is actually quite sophisticated, but it is designed around completely different principles than ours. Their ships use living armor that can adapt to energy weapons over time. That is why the Zilani have been losing. Their weapons become less effective the longer they fight. But our weapons do not give them time to adapt," added Commander Sarah Wright, who led the destroyer squadron. "Missiles and railgun projectiles cause immediate structural damage that cannot be regenerated quickly enough to matter in combat, Admiral." Parker nodded. "Then our strategy should be to hit them hard and fast before they can develop countermeasures. But first we need allies. Captain Morrison, I want you to work with the Zilani to contact other species that are fighting the Korthic. If we can coordinate our attacks, we might be able to stop them before they get any stronger." Jake spent the next week establishing communications with various alien species across the galaxy. Each conversation was more eye-opening than the last. The Avian Confederation, led by Sky Marshal Thren Carwing, controlled several hundred worlds but was losing ground to Korthic swarm fleets. The Crystalline Vorthan Collective offered advanced shield technology in exchange for human military assistance. Dr. Helen Ross, a scientist who had arrived with the fleet, was fascinated by the alien technologies being offered. "Captain," she told Jake excitedly, "if we can combine human weapons with alien defensive systems, we could create ships that are far more powerful than anything either side could build alone." But the most important contact came from an unexpected source. The defeated Korthik survivors from Jake's first battle had been captured by the Zilani, and one of them had requested to speak with the human commanders. The Korthik prisoner was unlike anything Jake had imagined. It stood nearly 8 feet tall, with a chitinous exoskeleton that gleamed like black metal. Its head was triangular with compound eyes that reflected light like mirrors, and its 4 arms ended in claws that could probably cut through steel when it spoke. Its voice was like the sound of grinding gears, and it took Paul several attempts to understand its language. But what it told them changed everything they thought they knew about the war. It says that the Korthik Empire is not really an empire at all, Paul translated, his face pale with shock. They are refugees fleeing from something called the Void Swarm. According to this prisoner, there is something much worse than the Korthak coming from the center of the galaxy, and the Korthak have been consuming worlds to build up enough strength to fight it. Admiral Parker leaned forward. Ask it what this Void Swarm is. Paul asked the question, and the Korthak's response made everyone in the room fall silent. It says the Void Swarm is an ancient machine intelligence that destroyed the previous galactic civilization 10,000 years ago. It has been dormant since then, but something has awakened it, and it is now spreading outward from the galactic core, consuming everything in its path. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. So the Korthak are not the real enemy? According to this prisoner, they are just the first wave, Paul confirmed. The real war has not even started yet. The news about the Void Swarm spread through the human fleet like wildfire, but Admiral Chris Parker refused to let it paralyze his forces. Within days of learning about the ancient machine intelligence, he had reorganized the entire military strategy around a new goal: building the strongest possible alliance before the real enemy arrived. Captain Danny Ford received his orders while docked at the Zilani station orbiting Aquinas Prime. His mission was to lead a joint task force to liberate the mining world of Kepler 442b, which had fallen to the Korthak 3 months earlier. The world was home to the Minervan Collective, a species of rock-like beings who could process metals with their bare hands. Captain Ford, Admiral Parker explained during the briefing, the Minervans are exactly the kind of allies we need. Their ability to work with metals could help us build ships faster than any automated factory. But we need to get them away from the Korthak first. Danny studied the tactical data on his command screen. Kepler 442b was defended by 15 Korthak ships and several ground installations. His task force consisted of 4 human vessels and 6 alien ships from 3 different species. It would be the first time humans had commanded a mixed fleet in combat. Lieutenant Kim Walsh, his tactical officer, had spent weeks learning to work with the alien communication systems. Captain, she reported, I have established links with all allied ships. The Zilani biocruiser Wave Dancer is ready. The avian fighters Sky Talon and Windstrike are in position, and the Vorthan crystal ship Harmony Light confirms their shields are at full power. Danny nodded as he watched the mixed fleet take formation around his command ship, the UES Liberator. The sight of human and alien vessels working together still amazed him. Even after several weeks of joint training exercises, Dr. Steve Jackson, the fleet's new alien language specialist, had been working around the clock to improve communication between the species. Captain, he said, I have uploaded the latest translation protocols to all ships. We should be able to coordinate tactical maneuvers in real time now. The battle for Kepler 442b began when the task force dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the system. The Korthik defenders immediately moved to intercept them, but they were not prepared for the new tactics that the combined fleet employed. The avian fighters, with their incredible speed and maneuverability, drew the Korthik ships into pursuit, while the heavier vessels positioned themselves for maximum impact. When the trap was sprung, human missiles and railgun rounds tore through Korthik armor, while Vorthan energy shields protected the Allied ships from return fire, direct hit-on. The lead Korthik cruiser, Kim reported as explosions lit up the main screen. Their armor is breaching in multiple locations. Danny watched as the Zilani bioship Wave Dancer used its living weapons to disable a Korthik destroyer. The alien vessel literally grew tentacles that wrapped around the enemy ship and crushed its weapon systems. I will never get used to seeing that, he muttered. The space battle lasted only 45 minutes, but the ground assault was more challenging. The Korthak had built massive harvesting installations on the planet's surface and were using captured Minervans as slave labor. Major Lisa Clark led the combined ground forces in an operation to free the prisoners and destroy the alien machinery. Lisa had trained extensively with alien troops over the past month, and she was impressed by their unique abilities. The avian soldiers could fly in the planet's atmosphere, giving them perfect reconnaissance capabilities. The Vorthan Crystal Warriors could project energy barriers that stopped Korthak weapons completely. "Major Clark," came the voice of Captain Vel Northak, the Zilani Marine commander, through her helmet communicator. "My biosensors indicate large numbers of Minervan life signs in the central processing facility." Lisa studied the tactical display on her wrist computer. The facility was heavily defended with automated weapon systems and at least 50 Korthak soldiers. "All units, this is Major Clark. We are going to hit them from 3 directions simultaneously. Avian Wing, take the high approach and disable their air defenses. Vorthan Team, provide shield support for the main assault. Zilani forces, use your bioweapons to take out their communication systems." The attack began at dawn, with avian soldiers diving from the sky like living missiles. Their natural weapons, razor-sharp talons and beaks that could punch through metal, made them perfect for destroying the Korthak. Sensor arrays. Lisa led the main assault force through the facility's main entrance while Vorthan Crystal Warriors projected protective barriers around the advancing troops. The Korthak fought viciously, but their weapons were designed for fighting other Korthak, not a mixed force of different species working together. When they reached the processing center, Lisa was horrified by what she found. Hundreds of Minervan prisoners were chained to massive machines that were slowly draining their natural ability to process metals. The rock-like aliens looked weak and sick, their normally bright crystal formations dulled by months of forced labor. "Get medical teams down here immediately," Lisa ordered as her troops began freeing the prisoners. "And someone find me whoever is in charge of this operation." The Korthak facility commander was a massive insectoid creature that stood over 9 feet tall. It fought with 4 weapons simultaneously until Sergeant Tim Rogers managed to disable it with a well-placed explosive charge. When Dr. Helen Ross examined the captured Korthak technology, her findings were disturbing. "Major Clark," she reported, "these machines are not just using the Minervans to process metals. They are somehow copying their abilities and storing the information in these data crystals." Lisa felt sick as she realized the implications. "You mean the Korthak are stealing alien abilities and saving them for later use?" "That appears to be exactly what they are doing," Helen confirmed. "If they can figure out how to transfer these abilities to their own species, they could become incredibly dangerous." The liberation of Kepler 442b was a complete success, but the intelligence gathered there painted a grim picture of Korthak operations throughout the galaxy. Similar facilities had been built on dozens of conquered worlds, each one designed to harvest the unique abilities of different alien species. Captain Ford sent his report to Admiral Parker immediately after returning to Zilani space. "Admiral," he concluded, "the Korthak are not just conquering worlds for resources. They are building a library of every useful biological ability in the galaxy. If they succeed in combining all of these traits, they could create soldiers that are virtually unstoppable." Admiral Parker studied the data from his command center aboard the UES Defiance. Around him, human and alien officers worked side by side at control stations, coordinating military operations across multiple star systems. "This changes our priorities," Admiral Parker announced to his senior staff. "We cannot just defend individual worlds anymore. We need to go on the offensive and destroy these harvesting facilities before the Korthak can complete their project." Commander Sarah Wright, who had been analyzing Korthak fleet movements, had more bad news. "Admiral, our long-range sensors are detecting major Korthak buildups in 12 different systems. It looks like they are preparing for a massive offensive." Of their own. How long before they are ready? Admiral Parker asked. Based on their construction patterns, I estimate 6 weeks, Sarah replied. But, Admiral, there is something else. We are also detecting strange energy readings from the direction of the galactic core. Whatever the void swarm is, it appears to be moving in our direction. Admiral Parker felt the weight of command pressing down on his shoulders. Earth's forces were scattered across dozens of star systems, fighting to save alien civilizations they had never heard of 6 months ago. The Korthek were preparing for a final push that could overwhelm their defenses. And somewhere in the distance, an ancient enemy was awakening that made everything else look insignificant by comparison. Get me a secure channel to Earth Command, he ordered. It is time to call in everything we have. Within hours, Admiral Kate Stone's face appeared on the main screen of the Defiance. Behind her, Jake could see the familiar sight of Earth's blue oceans and white clouds through the command center windows. Admiral Parker, Admiral Stone said without preamble, the President has authorized the mobilization of the entire Earth Defense Fleet, Admiral. Jerry Brooks is already en route with the 2nd and 3rd Fleets, and construction has begun on a new class of warships designed specifically for fighting aliens. How long until reinforcements arrive? Parker asked. Admiral Brooks will reach your position in 2 weeks, Stone replied. But Christopher, you need to know that we are not just sending more ships, we are sending everything. Earth is betting its entire future on this war. Parker nodded grimly. Understood, Admiral. We will hold the line until reinforcements arrive. After the transmission ended, Parker looked around at his mixed human and alien crew. They were fighting a war unlike anything in human history against enemies they barely understood for the survival of species they had just met. But as he watched Lieutenant Kim Walsh teaching a young Zelani officer how to operate human targeting systems, he felt a spark of hope. Humanity had found its place in the galaxy, and they would not let their new friends down. The final battle for the galaxy began 3 months later when Admiral Kate Stone arrived with the largest human fleet ever assembled. Jake Morrison watched from the bridge of his new ship, the UES Guardian, as over 400 vessels dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Korthik home system. The sight was magnificent and terrifying at the same time. Jake had been promoted to Admiral after his success in coordinating alien alliances, though he still felt more comfortable thinking of himself as an explorer rather than a military commander. His new ship was twice the size of the Aurora and carried a crew of 3,000 humans and aliens working together. Admiral Morrison, came the voice of Captain Jerry Brooks from the experimental battleship UES Titan. All fleet units are REPORT-NG ready for combat. The Korthik appeared to have everything they owned defending their homeworld. Jake studied the tactical display showing the enemy positions. The Korthik had assembled nearly 300 ships in defensive formations around their dark homeworld. Intelligence reports suggested this would be their final stand, using every resource they had gathered from conquered worlds. Admiral Stone, Jake reported through the fleet communication system, Allied forces are in position. We have 60 Zelani bioships, 80 avian fighters, 40 Vorthan crystal vessels, and representatives from 12 other species. Everyone is ready to end this war. Admiral Stone's voice came back strong and determined. Thank you, Admiral Morrison. All ships, this is Admiral Stone. Today we finish what the Korthik started and restore peace to the galaxy. The battle began. When the Korthik fired first, sending waves of dark energy toward the human fleet. But the aliens had learned from previous battles and were ready with countermeasures. Vorthan crystal ships projected massive shields that absorbed the energy attacks, while Zelani bioweapons adapted to counter the alien technology in real time. Captain Danny Ford led the first assault wave in his ship, the UES Freedom, accompanied by a mixed squadron of human and alien vessels. The coordination between different species had improved dramatically over the past months, and they moved together like parts of a single organism. Direct hit on the Korthak command ship, reported Lieutenant Kim Walsh from her tactical station aboard the Guardian. Their defensive line is beginning to collapse on the left flank. Jake watched as human missiles and railgun rounds tore through Korthik armor while alien energy weapons disabled their propulsion systems. The enemy ships were tough, but they had been designed to fight against other Korthik or individual alien species, not against a coordinated alliance using combined tactics. Major Lisa Clark commanded the ground assault forces from her transport ship, waiting for the space battle to clear a path to the planet's surface. Her troops included humans, Zalani Marines, avian shock troops, and crystal warriors from the Vorthan Collective. They had trained together for weeks and could now operate as a unified force. Admiral Morrison, Lisa's voice came through the communication. System, long-range sensors are detecting massive energy buildups on the planet's surface. The Korthik appear to be powering up some kind of super weapon. Dr. Helen Ross, now serving as the fleet's chief science officer, analyzed the sensor data from her station on the Guardian. Admiral, she reported with growing concern, those energy readings match the harvesting facilities we found on other worlds, but they are much more powerful. I think the Korthik are trying to activate all their stolen abilities at once. Jake felt his heart sink as he realized the implications. How long until whatever they are building is ready? Based on current power consumption rates, approximately? 40 minutes, Helen replied. But Admiral, if they succeed in combining all those alien abilities into a single organism, it could be powerful enough to destroy our entire fleet. Jake opened a direct channel to Admiral Stone's flagship. Admiral, we need to get ground forces to that planet immediately. The space battle is just a distraction from whatever they are really planning. Understood, Admiral Morrison. Stone replied, take your ship and a strike force through their lines. We will keep the main fleet engaged here to cover your approach. The UES Guardian broke away from the main battle along with 8 other ships, including Jerry Brooks's massive battleship Titan and Danny Ford's assault cruiser Freedom. They fought their way through the remaining Korthik defenders, taking damage but pressing forward toward the dark planet below. The landing was chaotic, with automated defense systems firing from every direction while Korthik ground troops tried to stop the invasion. But Major Clark's combined forces had trained for exactly this situation, and they moved with deadly efficiency through the alien installations. Jake led a strike team deep into the main facility, accompanied by Dr. Helen Ross, Sergeant Ben Collins, and a squad of mixed human and alien soldiers. The interior of the Korthik complex was like stepping into a nightmare, with pulsing organic machinery that seemed to be alive and growing. Admiral, Helen called out as they entered the central chamber, look at this. They are not just copying alien abilities anymore. They are actually creating a hybrid creature that combines traits from every species they have conquered. In the center of the room, a massive cocoon pulsed with energy while data flowed into it from hundreds of harvesting machines. Inside the transparent shell, they could see something taking shape that had features from dozens of different alien species. We have to destroy this thing before it finishes growing, Jake ordered. Sergeant Collins and his mixed squad of Marines began placing explosive charges around the chamber while Helen worked frantically to understand the alien control systems. Admiral, she shouted over the sound of approaching Korthik reinforcements, I think I can not only stop this process but reverse it. I can send all the stolen abilities back to their original species. Jake made the decision without hesitation. Do it, everyone else. Hold this position at all costs. The battle inside the facility was unlike anything any of them had ever experienced. Humans fought alongside Zalani warriors whose weapons could reshape themselves during combat. Avian soldiers used their natural flight to attack from impossible angles, while Vorthan crystal beings projected protective barriers around their allies. Helen's fingers flew over the alien controls as energy surged through the facility. The creature in the cocoon began to dissolve, its borrowed features fading away as the harvested abilities returned to their original sources across the galaxy. The effect was immediate and dramatic. Across known space, members of conquered species who had been weakened by Korthik harvesting suddenly felt their natural abilities returning stronger than ever before. The psychic powers of telepathic races increased dramatically, while physically gifted species found their strength and speed enhanced beyond previous limits, but the most significant change occurred among the Korthek themselves. Without the stolen abilities they had become dependent on, their empire began collapsing from within. Ships lost power, communication networks failed, and their command structure fell apart as leaders found themselves unable to maintain control over their forces. The Korthek emperor, captured during the final assault, was brought before the Allied commanders in the ruined facility. His words through Dr. Paul Carter's translation sent shockwaves through everyone present. "You have destroyed us all," the Emperor said, his compound eyes reflecting the facility's dim lights. "The Korthek were never your true enemy. We were preparing to fight something far worse, the ancient machines that returned from the Galactic core. Without our combined strength, you will all perish when they arrive." Jake felt the blood drain from his face. "What ancient machines?" "The Void Swarm," the Emperor replied. "They destroyed the previous galactic civilization 10,000 years ago and have been dormant since then. But something has awakened them, and they are coming again. We consumed worlds and absorbed abilities because it was the only way to become strong enough to fight them." The revelation changed everything. Within days, representatives from dozens of species gathered at the captured facility to discuss this new threat. The Galactic Council was reformed with Earth as a founding member, and Ambassador LeVar Green became humanity's first official representative. General Rick Davis arrived to establish the Terran Defense Corps, a joint military force that would train soldiers from every allied species. The combination of human tactics with alien abilities created warriors more effective than anyone had thought possible. Jake Morrison found himself appointed as the overall commander of Deep Space Station Unity, humanity's first permanent installation outside the Sol system. The massive station would serve as headquarters for the new Galactic Alliance and a symbol of cooperation between species. When the first Void Swarm scouts appeared at the edge of known space 6 months later, they encountered something their ancient programming had never seen before. Instead of divided species fighting each other, they found a united galaxy that had learned to combine their strengths rather than exploit their weaknesses. Jake stood on the observation deck of Deep Space Station Unity, watching the mixed fleet that now defended the outer systems. Human warships flew alongside alien vessels, and every bridge was staffed by multiple species working as one crew. The war against the Void Swarm would be the greatest challenge.